Please pray with me. May these words that I speak be grounded in my soul, encouraged by the God presence in me. And may these words that you hear be captured by your soul, enlivened by the God presence in you. Amen. I have come to believe that welcome is central to our lives, that humans possess within their DNA a yearning to belong, which is achieved in authentic welcome. I also believe that Jesus saw welcome as a central characteristic of discipleship, and I find myself amazed once again at his wisdom, a God-centered, God-driven wisdom that could see so clearly what was necessary for life to be full and whole. Welcome, which is a natural extension of love and compassion and empathy, always requires relationship. Someone has to offer welcome and another needs to receive it. Welcome is at the very heart of community. But if a community is to be life-giving, the welcome must be unconditional and freely given. The welcoming way of God needs to be the welcoming way of our community, of every community. Our psalm today gives some profound insight about the welcoming nature of God, even if that wasn't the psalmist's intention, which it probably wasn't. But this psalm begins with the writer feeling disconnected from and yearning for God, yearning for that relationship. Will you forget me forever, he says? How long will you hide? How long must I bear this pain? Oh, woe, woe is me. The psalmist is waiting to be welcomed by God. But as the psalm continues, the writer suddenly becomes aware that it is his ego-driven fears and his sense of defiantly going it alone that has kept him from experiencing God. When the psalmist finally moves from being driven by ego to being driven by his soul, suddenly he experiences the deep and abiding presence of God. The God Spirit has been there the whole time, and each time we welcome that Spirit, we in turn are welcomed by God. And so the psalm finishes with, "Come, O God, make your home in my heart." What better welcome? Now, I've discovered in conversation with more than a few of you that when I talk about the abiding presence of God, you find that idea rather vague. What does it really mean? Or how does one experience the presence of the Spirit of God? Trying to explain, trying to give words to what is an embodied spirit is not easy, which is why I so strongly believe in sharing God moments. Those moments in the midst of life, moments of mystery and awe, moments of celebration and joy, moments of challenge, and moments of simplicity, and moments of sorrow and lament. It is in all of those held moments, both in the experience of them and in the sharing of that experience, that we experience the presence of God. And that presence is palpable if we open our heart and our soul to that moment. I feel that God presence every time I hold a child. I feel that God presence every time I take the hand of someone in hospital. I feel that God presence every time I share a meal at table with others. I feel that presence every time I hold someone in deep grief or sorrow. And I feel that presence every time I smell the air after a rain. And in every one of those times, there is welcome. Profound and enduring welcome. Welcome offered and welcome received. We feel welcome in the presence of the mystery that is God because we all belong to God. Everything belongs to God. In welcoming God into our soul, we are welcomed by the entire cosmos. And so it is no surprise to me that Jesus would end a whole chapter in Matthew's Gospel, a chapter that's devoted to teaching his followers the fundamentals of leadership and the challenges of relationship, that he would end all of that with a few words about welcome. His final words about the qualities of leadership, of discipleship, were not about the right things to believe or the proper rules to follow. Rather, his final words were about genuine and authentic welcome of each and every person. Anyone who welcomes what you do welcomes me. Anyone who welcomes what I do welcomes God. This is a large work I've called you into, but don't be overwhelmed. You see, my friends, it is in the small things, the day-to-day things, the moment-by-moment things, where we are called to welcome in a way that transforms our lives, transforms the lives of those we meet, and ultimately transforms the world in which we live. Several years ago, I was in Vancouver one weekend and decided to attend worship at a United Church there. I chose the church of a friend and colleague in ministry, knowing that I would hear a good sermon. When I arrived, I was handed a bulletin. There was no eye contact and no words spoken. No welcome. I went into the sanctuary, which was near empty, and sat down in the middle of a pew, hoping someone would join me. No one did. During the announcements, my colleague, the minister there, introduced me to the congregation. Following worship, I made my way to the very large foyer where coffee was served. I got some coffee and intentionally stood alone to see what would happen, now that they knew I was a stranger. No one came to me. No one talked to me. And occasionally, when someone made eye contact, they immediately looked away. They were quite content to welcome each other, and they did that amazingly well. But they had no interest in welcoming another. I left feeling very unwelcome, disappointed, and somewhat hurt. I told that minister, a friend of mine, about that experience a week later, and he was deeply apologetic, but not shocked. He left that church less than a year after that visit. That congregation, just 5 years later, is about to close its doors for good. This is not an uncommon experience. Some of you have returned home to tell me of similar experiences in other United churches. And I'm not telling this story so that we might pat ourselves on the back for being so much more welcoming, although we certainly are more welcoming than the experience I just described. Rather, I'm telling this story to demonstrate the importance of genuine and authentic welcome, not just to the stranger in our midst, but also to each other. Our church community, any church community, can only ever be as healthy and vibrant as our welcome. And this is something we need to be continually and diligently working at, so that each of us here is not only welcoming, but also feels deeply welcomed in this place. If not, we could find ourselves in the same place as Duncan in the story this morning, who just wants to color and is suddenly faced with unrest, disappointment, or indifference because the crayons don't feel welcome. Jesus is saying to us, this is large work I've called you into, but don't be overwhelmed by it. It's best to start small. Give a cup of water to someone who is thirsty. Or say hello to someone you haven't talked to for a while. Invite someone to sit with you next week. And then take it out of this community. Smile at the clerk at the checkout. Say thank you to someone who holds the door open. Feel the sun. Smell the rain. And listen to the trees. It's all about welcome. It's all about belonging. It's all about the presence of God in the spirit of life. It's all about knowing that we belong. And so does everyone else. It's all about getting an A for coloring. For the spirit of life is known in our welcoming ways. Amen. The worship team asked if I would leave you with some wonder questions for this bit of meditation time, as I do with the children. And so here are some wonderings. I wonder how you feel when you experience welcome. And I wonder how you feel when you have welcomed someone. And I wonder how you feel to know that you belong.